to translate research or teaching into real world solution, reality. And having that mindset, we talked about Stanford. In Stanford, people are not really, people I met who were either students or professors, they were not interested in getting a job. They were interested in creating jobs. So no one in the university doesn't say, we have great graduate employment. Graduate employability is a given, it's taken. So we need to start thinking about giving that mindset to investigate things that will have a long-term impact. And digital and entrepreneurial, so these are enablers. So digital transformation needs to happen across all strategies. But remembering that this is not the be-all end-all, it's a tool to bring innovation and entrepreneurship. But the accelerator for that really is about internationalization, sustainability, and social inclusivity. And to this, I want to talk to you about the conflict sometimes occurs in academia and entrepreneurialness. So academia idea, you quickly try to publish and you think you've made an impact on society. And, but that's not the whole story. You know, that's the academic cycle. But I think there is a two cycle, which is a university cycle, which is also the pattern, product, business plan, startups, society, which will be called entrepreneurial cycle. But I would put to you that we need to start thinking in that way so that before you publish, you patent if you can. And not just patent, but patent needs to have transformation to a business plan, to a startup. Otherwise, it's just not a score. You know, how many multi-million-dollar companies are you start creating? And it's not about what you can get from them. Stanford doesn't take royalties, huge amount. You know, they get more money. MIT gets more money from when those companies become multi-billion-dollar company. They give donations more to their organization, to their universities. So we need to move that mindset. And then I want to say translational research in my own career, this is my own work, takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, and it has to start with fundamental research. So in '97, we showed for the first time that vascular endothelial growth factor stimulated nitric oxide. That gave me an idea that led to the discoveries that led to identifying two pathways that protect against preeclampsia, which subsequently led to setting up of a company in 2016 and getting proof of principle funding done, and then getting further investment, equity investment, patents filed, publications ongoing. So this all takes time, first of all, and then it costs a lot of money. And most of the money in the very early stage comes from government. So research funding is critical, and those funding are to you. So if you move from one organization to another, those funding move with you. So it is your investment. And if when you do that, and you do, then actually the university and the organizations benefit too, because what I would say to you that in terms of citations and things, that helps ranking for the university, but ensure that your publications are with international partners so that that will increase citation over national publications. And then you promote your papers in social media, because society, especially in the area of health that I'm involved in, is interested and wants to know about it. You know, for example, when COVID death reached 300, you know, that triggered in my head, wow, that's the same number of deaths every year women experience in pregnancy. And today, while I'm talking to you, every minute I'm talking to you, I can tell you one person has died of COVID, but also every year, every minute, a mother or a child dies of preeclampsia, but we don't hear about it because it's not in the public psyche. COVID is in the public psyche, so it's being promoted. So we need to start talking about the problems. And when you do this, then you create that knowledge-based economy to path to economic growth. So I'd like us to start thinking as Muslims to create a culture of giving to science as we do for building mosques. And this is something so that they give to university, and universities can give that revenue to translational science or humanity or whatever. And you know, we've done it in the case of my own company, Mirzam Therapeutics, with the view of creating a multi-billion-dollar company. So, but if it does, we'll create leading research institutes in women's health. So it has to benefit humanity, benefit mankind. And if we do all of that, we can go back to what was in your part of the world 1,000 years ago, the house of wisdom, and the gold, what is known in the West as the Islamic Golden Age. And I think, yeah, it was built around the pillars of education, research, innovation, and leadership. I've just talked about precision medicine and transforming lives focused on women, but that can apply to anything else. And here is an example of what that immigration I was talking to you about. USA promoted immigration post-1945 after the Second World War. India took the path of education. Today, the impact is clear for everyone to see. Over a dozen or more CEOs of Fortune 500 companies are either Indians or of Indian origin. So this is an example of what can be achieved if you get that genuine excellence drive. And this is where the opportunity to capture international HE market for the kingdom comes. So this is a graph of showing the income of international students from rest of the world minus Europe to United States, UK, Australia, and Canada. And you can see that in the United States that was going up and Australia had overtaken United Kingdom. And we know that the top 100 universities in the world, majority of them are in the United States. But that's changing. And there has been a leveling because of the COVID. And the geopolitics of it means that market is open to anyone who can capture it. And so I'm proposing that we should be thinking about that market as a revenue stream. So bring talent, build talent. Self-reliance is going to be important going forward. Less reliance on government. Be the engine for the country's economy for Vision 2030, not a burden on resources. And that's where that international market brings advantage. The universities need to become independent universities so that they are globally competitive. But there's an advantage right now is to hire virtual teams as global educators so that we enhance employability and graduate outcome and promote that genuine excellence. And governments need to think about, they need to reduce, or it should be light touch accreditation. Create free zones for higher education institutions. And ministry as a critical friend. I know His Excellency, the Deputy Minister for Education, will be speaking with you in Arabic, and I hope you'll tell him that we want him to be a critical friend, not the policeman. And so free universities to compete globally. And last, I'd like to just finish with 2 slides. So this slide I've put to you is about Neom, everyone's heard about it. But I want to say this, that His Royal Highness the Crown Prince did not go to Oxford or Cambridge. You know, he studied in the kingdom. Yet he had the foresight and the vision to come up with an amazing vision for this Neom, to create a city that has never been created before, that had what I call the essence of Cordoba. And if we think of that, then it is not where you are that matters, it's what you do that counts. And it's outstanding that the impact it will have on the world, and it will automatically drives people to that vision. So that's what we need to be thinking about. And you know, I'm driven to this because of that vision. And so what I would say post-COVID, it's going to be very clear that make your passion your purpose, and your purpose your joy, and work with people you really enjoy, right? And finally, think about protect health, pursue knowledge, promote enterprise, learn some skills, and purchase wisely, but be kind to everyone, and take a positive attitude, because mental health is really critical for success. So having a healthy mind as well as a healthy body is important. And finally, I'd like to end by telling, if there are students listening to it, that you need 5 P's in life. You need a profession, but you also need an additional passion. Mine happened to be poetry, you may have heard. Yours may be painting, doesn't matter. And those 2 P's were given to me by a Nobel laureate. I've added 3 more P's to it. You need purpose. When you have purpose, you have focus. As Steve Jobs said, the vision pulls you. And then you need persistence, so that when, you know, without resilience, you cannot get very far. But even then, you may hit a brick wall through which you cannot go through, you cannot go around. And that's when you need the power of persuasion. Then others will come along who will help you come over that brick wall, because they buy into that vision. So your vision becomes a common vision. And that's what is about Neom that attracts many of us to the kingdom and King Abdulaziz University itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, both of you. So we had Terrell, who spoke about the new paradigm shift towards demonstration of skills and meaning making and high impact practices. He also talked about the importance of communication that is becoming one of the most sought after skills by employers. He also talked about e-portfolios and that employers are now considering this as one of the key factors for success for their employees. So he said that the best thing we can give to our students is to make meaning and authorship. Then Professor Asif, he actually talked about the need for universities to adopt new strategies for growth, and that they need to be the engine for investment. They need to lower their dependence on governmental funds. I'm going to pick some lines from his presentation. He said, quality supersedes everything. Quality matters. And universities with a mission to change the world are highly likely to lead in the post-COVID-19 reality. Also, he talked about leadership, and that inclusive leadership is a key to success in the post-COVID-19 world. And the earlier, this is a very good message. Thank you, Asa, for this. The earlier you fail, the faster you learn. And that in order to go for us to go back to the golden era of Beit al-Hikmah, I would take Asif's words as a need for translation as well, and Arabization as well. So maybe this is going to help to Arabize some sciences into our region, to localize them. And the last line where our poet lingered, he said, "It is not where you are that matters, but what you do." So thank you both of you for these eye-opening thoughts and fascinating ideas. I think it is now time for the questions. So we will start with Terrell. Terrell, some of the audience are asking about the rubrics that you used. Where can they find them? And do they need like a professional to make these rubrics?
We have a set of them. We're always working to develop additional ones as the need arises, but we have a set of the value rubrics. You can access them on our website, which is www.aacu.org/value, VALUE. And it will take you to both some information about the creation of them, but you can download one or all of them. There's no charge for that. The way our website is set up, it looks like you're going to be, you have to put them in a shopping cart and check out, but at the end there's no charge. And you can get them as a Word document as well as a PDF, because we encourage individuals as well as institutions or programs to modify the rubrics to make them more relevant and appropriate to your particular setting and needs for your program, to change the language as is necessary, etc. You'll also find additional publications and research that have been done on the rubrics by different institutions, etc.
Great, great, thank you. In order to give Professor Asif some time to relax, I'm going to give you two more questions.
Sure.
So the second question will be, what are these hybrid skills that you talked about, and how are they different from hard and soft skills?
The hybrid skills are indeed where the burning glass study in particular, but is the bringing together of these the soft skills primarily in our way in which we have talked about these learning outcomes as hard and soft is really not the best way to talk about them, because we've put the knowledge generation, the learning of the content of a particular area of study into the hard skills, when in reality that involves a lot of memorization, of rote learning, etc. And it's accumulating information. And that actually doesn't ask us to employ higher order learning skills, such as integration, application, evaluation. And the soft skills have been relegated to something that is really non-academic and therefore not valued that highly, but they are the particularly human skills of indeed talking to each other, translating, of understanding differences. As Dr. Asif had talked about, the diversity that is out there is needed for us to have better solutions to press ourselves about challenging our own ideas and getting us to think differently. It's the oral communication, the written communication, the ethical behavior that becomes part of how we act and decide things. And so we've set these things up as opposing things. And part of what the hybrid economy and the hybrid jobs talk about is that it takes both the knowledge and the ability to know what to do with it and how to interact with others to achieve common positive ends, to innovate, etc. And added into that now is indeed technology. And the idea that so much of what we have to do now and that we are doing is reliant upon artificial intelligence, and it's dependent upon technology to allow us to live better lives and to do things that we couldn't do before. But if we don't have the essential skills, the combination of those hard and soft skills, that's all we have. The technology, the artificial intelligence only does what we instruct it to do. And it still only does the things that its algorithms and its programming have put in place. It still requires humans, and it requires humans to be even more sophisticated and complex in their own behaviors and thinking to be able to continue to take it to higher levels. Artificial intelligence still hasn't been able to do what humans do, and how we interact and how we deal with the unknown and to anticipate it. They can do things with programs and algorithms, but we know from the current crisis we're in, those are helpful and necessary, but they're still not giving us the answers we need. We're still very reliant upon individuals to take those things that the algorithms provide us with and to see within them where the answer may lie that we haven't seen before. And so more and more of the jobs are requiring our students to be able to bring together the knowledge, the interactive, interpersonal skills, the sense of some agency to act, and the technology if we're going to be able to go forward. I can't tell you what all those jobs are, but they're growing. The demand for them is huge, particularly in the employment sector. It should be high in the government sector as well, because that's where the innovation and the creativity is going to come.
Thank you. So back to Asif. People, commenting on that picture, they said that the white hand has the superiority over the black hand. Most of the comments were like that. Is there a prize for this question that you would like to offer? Maybe some shares in Mirzaim Therapeutics Limited?
That's a very, sorry, I have to, am I unmuted? Yes. That's a good one. Yes, that's a very good one. I think the prize is that you have got a very good, diverse mindset. That's a great, to know that most people are thinking that, because that's not what I experienced when I showed it to many people. So I'm very pleased to hear that.
Okay, great. So questions for you. Okay, as an educator, this is the question. This is the question actually. They said, as an educator, I have taught online courses for college students. I've noticed that courses are actually beneficial when preparation for content design for online courses are actually taken seriously. I can argue that teaching online requires more preparation on the part of the educator than regular classes. What is best method? This is the question. What is the best method to achieve such preparation? And if there is an international example, you can give an advice or like some piece of advice on this.
Who's that question to?
This is for Asif.
Oh, so the question is, what is the best way to prepare for online?
Yes.
Well, I think that's why I said very beginning, genuine excellence. If you have been doing outstanding research, outstanding teaching, in then for you to put that together, it doesn't take a lot of work. But that's the first. That's why I say those who have solid foundation will have found COVID not a challenge as much as it. Obviously, it's been a horrible thing in the UK. We're the second or the third largest deaths in the world, probably after the United States. But here are two really world-class research countries, but we've done very badly, and you've done extremely well. And I think it's thanks to the leadership taking early decision. But so in the same way, in terms of teaching, I think, yes, it is. I know that it takes a lot more time to do assessments, a lot more time but also let's not try to make things harder for students. You can't assess them in the same way you can assess in the past. And I would argue that, do you need to? We've, as a country, have let doctors become doctors before their final exams. And those students are just as competent. And I met some of those students. So the question is, are we overburdening our students? That's why I talk about soft skills. So as Dr. Terry said, Terry said, it's creating that, not just having knowledge, but to know what to do with that knowledge.
Great. Okay. So this question is for Terry. During the COVID-19, students are not assessed. Especially some learning skills, that require, the psychomotor, type of skills. So how can we improve this affected learning after the COVID-19 crisis?
Well, I think there are a lot of folks out there who are spending a lot of time now trying to enhance ways in which, particularly I think some of the knowledge acquisition parts of learning, the more the psychometric approaches that lie behind many of the standardized testing that we have relied upon, are trying very hard to try to put in place ways in which the integrity of that can be maintained, so that there's an ability to ensure that the student responding to those exams and those tests and things is indeed the student in question. But again, Dr. Asif and I are talking about, I think, some of the same things in slightly different ways. Is that in the post-COVID, in the COVID-19 era, in this distance learning environment, is we can capture, you're looking at me in real time. We can do that with our students. And does it take more time? Yes, but that is where institutions and programs can contribute to this, is to make the resources available in a way that allow us to actually see what the student is doing with the knowledge. Not so much that they can give it back on the final exam, but those doctors are able to become doctors before they've completed their exams, because they're doing doctoring. Okay, they're actually engaging in what they have learned in showing it. We can have our other students do that through problems, through tasks that they are assigned. You can have them do that in groups, and that can all be captured now in real time and saved for later, but you can capture it at the time it's happening. And then you as a professor, or if you have a teaching assistants, etc., they can look at it later, but it allows you to see the students talking about what they know, how they're contributing to solving the solution, the problem, etc. Ask the student to create a problem or to create a solution or to create an idea or something new out of what they have that may be a solution that doesn't exist. And so we have the technology, or at least the technology is available. Back to, again, where Dr. Asif was talking about our inclusiveness, we do have to take cognizance of the varying ability of students in their access to the technology. They don't all own it. They don't all have the same access. And that is where the institution, I think, and the programs can collaborate to try to make it possible for students to do these things. But quite frankly, this little device, this smartphone that so many of our students have, it's so ubiquitous. It can capture in so many of these things and have the information there and send it to some place where the faculty, the institution, others can actually look at it. Why a rubric becomes relevant is that it is something that is constant across the learning modality. And it still lets the student look at it and the faculty member look at it and all of the students look at it and say, this is what I think that means, and this is why I've done this. That's why I'm doing these things. And so they can link it to and articulate how it relates to the learning that is being sought. So that may be too long an answer and not satisfying, but I think it's where the opportunities are, and it allows us as faculty to innovate and to try things out. And again, not being too hard on ourselves or our students if it doesn't work quite like we wanted it to. Some things are going to not work out as well as we like. We can call it a failure, but that's how we learn.
Yes.
And what we learn from it becomes the important thing. And so, yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Yeah.
Another question for you, Terrell, and this is like a repeated question. Could you elaborate more on the diversified version of e-portfolios?
Portfolios, I'm a keen advocate. When I was a faculty member, the portfolio technology was still being developed. The e-portfolio technology was, but now there are numerous e-portfolio providers. There are companies that deliver these things that are connected to our learning management systems at universities, et cetera. So they're now at a point where they're very integrated. As I mentioned, the Stanford example, they've taken their student portfolio and integrated it with their transcript software so that those two things can be connected. They don't ask employers to look at a complete student portfolio, but by tagging and pulling things in, it gives you a lot of evidence. There are also, though, free versions of e-portfolios that are available. And so they all have components that will interact and talk to each other. But again, coming back to faculty and in this remote environment is for us to start to think about, well, okay, here's an assignment. And rather than having it be I want the students to work as a group in class and to come up with something that they're going to say or notes to report out. That can all be done in a digital environment. It can be captured. It can be part of the demonstration of the students' learning. And in addition, portfolios typically ask students to talk about how what they have just done demonstrates or shows the level of learning and the kind of learning that was being looked for. And so again, they're making a judgment about it. That portfolio is something that the student, he or she, can carry with them from course to course, program to program, from what they do in their remote life and the interviews they might take, the job that they may still be working, the research that they have done, and they can bring it all together in a way that links it to and allows the student to pull upon what they've learned in another course, what they've learned in another context, and bring that learning together and show how it helps add to the outcomes, those essential outcomes that are being looked for. And so it's a repository. The portfolio itself is simply a tool. It's a repository. But we have to help students think about what to put into it and what they select and how they talk about it and how it illustrates more or less what is being looked for by the faculty or the program, gives us great insight into the student's learning. And it gives the student actually more insight into her or his own learning. And they actually become owners and agents of that their own learning. I can't make them learn. I can drill them, I can test them, I can't make them learn it in a way that's going to be useful. And so they get to start to see what that difference is between knowing it and being able to use it. And the portfolio is a tool for that.
Yeah, is that like a call to rewrite like ILOs, maybe in a way or another?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's got many implications, I think, for us as faculty in academic programs, but it also has real implications for helping students develop some of that purpose, some of that agency in their own learning. Yeah, we can't make them learn, and just because we've given them a degree doesn't guarantee that they're going to be successful in everything that they do and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. So this question is for Professor Asif. How can we promote our KSA or KU patents to be internationally marketed?
The patents, did you say?
Yes.
Well, that's why I said at the very beginning that you have to do research that has a global impact. So no point creating patent for the sake of filing a patent from King Abdulaziz University and saying, oh, we've got a Saudi patent. But Saudi population is limited. So investors are looking at where are the global markets. The global markets are the United States, Europe, China, Japan. These are the big, and of course the GCC country or the MENA region, which would be a big market. So that's what, and so those are the regions you need to think about. And does your discovery have an impact? And so we focused on unmet medical need. So research that is in areas. So that's why COVID for my company made sense to invest some of our funds to that, because it's a disease with no treatment, just like preeclampsia is a disease with no treatment. And both of them, preeclampsia kills about the same amount of people, if you like, around the world as COVID has killed, right? But because COVID is so lethal, so on a small proportion, but because it's made a global impact, it's an infectious disease. So first you have to file your patent globally, but it costs a lot of money. You know, we've spent £500,000 on patent costs alone. So it's not, so that's why I think it can't be just the university. So my model would be that you need a system where universities don't have equity, but they bankroll you at the early stage, and then you pay them back for the patent costs when you set up your company. And if you do well, they get royalties, right? So that's the model I would like us to think about, so that we incentivize the innovate. So I always say IP, that's the intellectual property, let it be to PI, principle, not, and that if we did that, not only would we get, that's another way of getting talent. So I'm sitting in the UK and you say, You come here, you create something, you own the IP. I will get the team to be over there, right? Because that's, you've got but it's a long-term investment. That's why I think the Neom project is an amazing project. And it will transform the Middle East, maybe the world.
Great. Okay. So a relevant question, and it could be the last question. What do you think that COVID-19 has demonstrated about research intensity at global universities?
Well, it's shown that some universities are able to adapt quickly to a new disease and are able to modify their research and their focus because they have the tools, they have the infrastructure. Actually, it's also about your way you think. So thinking outside the box is really important. That's why I said to you my 5 Ps. And it was Richard Ernst who gave me the first 2. He said to me, Asif, if you're not thinking of Stockholm, don't do research. So everyone has to, and I said, Richard, you can say that because you've got the Nobel Prize. And he said, no, but you will never get to think about it unless you have an additional passion. His was painting, and he was encouraging me to do my poetry, because that allows you to use your memory, your reflective memory, to come up with new ideas, like the eureka you get in the shower or in a bath. So that's first thing. Second thing, sorry, I was going to just say, second thing, yes, it's not just the elite universities that you've heard on the news that have done breakthrough discoveries. You know, there have been some, it's individuals. Individuals make it happen. And that's where, so that's, you know, what I'm, you know, Steve Jobs is Steve Jobs, whether he's in Apple or he was in the company, I'm forgetting his name. But what I'm trying to say to you, we need to identify individuals and celebrate them and build teams around them. Everyone can teach, but not everyone should necessarily have to do research. But every researcher must teach.
I see. Thank you very much. Thank you, both of you, Professors Tyrrell Rhodes and Professor Asif Ahmed. And I think I've got 2 lines that can be take-home lessons for our audience today. One was told by Tyrrell, that the best thing we can give to our students is to make meaning, is to learn how to make meanings. And his advice was for teachers to move their students up the ladder of maybe Bloom's taxonomy, and to target skills more than, you know, the knowledge and the basics of that taxonomy. Dr. Asif, made a great line that it is not where you are that matters, but what you do. I'd like also to remind you of next week's event that is going to be presented by Professors Judy McCain and Professor Paul Jones. And the title of that of the webinar will be Issues to Consider in Planning the Return to Campus. So don't miss this coming session. So again, thank you very much, Professor Ahmed, Professor Rhodes.
Thank you.
Until we see you in another event, take care of yourselves. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.